When I set out to write this story, I didn't know what I wanted it to be, or really what I didn't want it to be either. But I did know one thing. I wanted to work through the things in my life that shaped me, formed me, and sometimes haunted me. My name is Luke, and I'm from Wicklow Ridge. Wicklow Ridge is the kind of place that conjures up images of redwoods and foggy mornings, the scent of campfire, and mystery hanging in the air. And while it's kind of all those things, there's also an undercurrent of secrets and shame. What might seem like a cool, quirky place on the map to some was, for me, the kind of place I couldn't wait to get away from. I used to tell people there's a reason I ran screaming from that place. And there's also a reason I ran screaming back to it, time and time again. Regardless of how I feel about it, it's my home. It's where I'm from. My mother, Glenda, wasn't born there. She married into the Ridge by way of my father, Harry. Both of them are gone now. My father went first years ago, and his passing, that was the moment the town, and even I, started seeing my mother for who she really was. It also raised questions about how exactly my father died. The truth is, no matter how complicated my feelings are about my mother, I couldn't begin to untangle them, not while she was still alive. And certainly not like this, in a public way. Part of me always felt like if she caught wind of what I was thinking, it would break her soul. And I couldn't have that on my shoulders. Over the years, I tinkered with writing, short stories mostly. And so some of what I'm about to share will be told in that format. Some from her point of view, some from my father's, some from mine, and others straight out of a diary. Now, looking back at it all, I think this was the only way I could do it. The only way I could examine each facet, each texture of memory, and maybe figure out the how and why behind so many things. Things that happened to me, to them, to this strange, beautiful, broken place called Wicklow Ridge. I hope you'll stick around, and I hope you'll understand. I needed to tell this story, even if it meant finally telling the truth. The House on the Ridge, written and narrated by Luke Wicklow. They say time heals everything, but I don't think time ever stepped foot inside this house. I cracked the door open like I was expecting it to bite me. The wood groaned, and the air hit me like a memory I didn't ask for, a stale mix of cedar, dust, and whatever perfume death likes to wear when it settles in for the long haul. The house was quiet. Too quiet, like it'd been holding its breath, waiting on me to come back and deal with what I left behind. It hadn't been that long, maybe 10 years, or was it 11? Doesn't really matter. The point is, I hit the road running from the place I grew up in and never looked back. I stepped over the threshold and dropped my bag by the door, the way soldiers drop their gear when they realize they made it home but don't know what home even means anymore. The floorboards creaked under me, like they remembered who I was and weren't all that thrilled about it. There was a hallway table up ahead, still holding that same vase of dried up flowers Mama always insisted were good enough to leave out. Beside it, her old WWJD mug, chipped, stained, and smug as ever, like it knew things I didn't. I picked it up, held it in my hands. It was lighter than I remembered. Once, years back, Mama had that same mug in her hand, smiling at me from the kitchen like everything was fine. It was morning, maybe, or at least it was trying to be. She stirred something on the stove and sipped from the mug. Then, without missing a beat, she reached for the bottle of bourbon, poured 2 fingers into that holy little chalice and took another swig. Didn't even blink. The smile was gone after that. I set the mug down gently, right where I found it. Let the ghosts have their toys. The living room still looked like her. Quilts thrown over the back of the couch, a basket of half-finished crochet beside her chair like she'd just stepped out for a cigarette and would be right back. One quilt had a gold cross stitched in the center. That was her thing. Faith sewn into everything, even when the woman herself had completely lost the plot. I didn't touch a damn thing. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the sofa. Across from me was Mama's TV. A flat screen, surprisingly, but not one of the fancy new ones. One of those flat screens that wasn't really flat at all. Mama used to sit right here, crocheting and listening to Jan Crouch on the TV, talking about angels and end times like they were happening next week. My gaze shifted to the door next to it. Even though it had been at least 15 years since I heard my daddy's groans from that room, it still felt heavy to look at, like the weight of his last few years and all the allegations against Mama over his death still hung over this house like a summer rain cloud that forgot how to pass. A part of me wanted to open that door, see if she left it the same, or if that's where she took her last breaths too. But I didn't. Instead, I headed upstairs, dragging my past behind me like a wet coat. I stopped outside my old bedroom door. The handle felt colder than it should have. When I pushed it open, it was like stepping into a photograph. Posters still clinging to the walls, bed made too neatly, bookshelf sagging under the weight of stories I once believed in. I sat down on the edge of the bed, exhaled, and then I saw it. A crooked picture frame on the nightstand. Something about it itched at me. I reached out, straightened it, and there it was, an envelope, yellowed with age, tucked behind the frame like it had been hiding, waiting. My name scrawled across the front in my mother's handwriting. Sharp, impatient, familiar. Of course,